Today is your opportunity to ask an expert at St Michael's. You can type your questions into the Q&A feature at any time. If your question is not addressed in the session today, and as long as it's not entered as anonymous, so we know who to respond to, then we'll get back to you via email. If you have any technical issues at any time, please outline the issue in the Q&A feature and we'll try to assist where possible. I'm going to welcome to the screen now Jared, Emma, and a new member of the group you haven't met yet, Daniel Zito. Now, we've had some pre-submitted questions, so while others are writing their questions in the Q&A function, we've got some that we'd like to respond to first up. So we've got some families joining us who are interested in Margaret Thomas House Kindergarten today. And one of you submitted some questions around how kindergarten children in 4-year-old kindergarten are prepared for school. So I'm going to ask Emma Phillips to respond to that. Emma?
Thanks, Terrie. So I went and consulted actually because I wanted to make sure that I didn't speak for our Margaret Thomas House and early years leaders without their consultation and their voice added to the answer. So the information that they've shared, and I'll try and make sure I honour their words. So we're getting children ready for what's the next right from the very start, from when they first begin, whatever quadrant or whatever stage they're in. And when I say that, it's about developing relationships of trust. So the social and emotional development is the focus in at the start of when they first begin their journey in Margaret Thomas House. And that's obviously incredibly important to have that really strong sense of self and those strong, trustful relationships having been built between the students and the educators. And the fact that it's an incredibly familiar environment. So our children who are in Margaret Thomas House sits within our early years learning spaces. So the children on a daily basis see across and to those learning spaces where their prep and year one friends are learning and growing. So within that, and then I spoke earlier before about the Reggio Emilia education approach, which sees the children as strong and curious and capable. The children have 100 languages and 100 more. The children are encouraged to work on their strengths, but also their lesser strengths. And through that framework of the Martin Seligman's character strengths language, we empower the children to have a voice about their questions, about their worries, their concerns, about what they're excited about as they move between being in the kindergarten, Margaret Thomas House, into our school environment. It's the preparation is done over an extended period of time. So the children enjoy programs and activities at the towards the middle and the end of their final year in Margaret Thomas House in the prep spaces, getting to know the various educators that they'll be working with, both classroom and specialists, as well as introducing more formal, more focused literacy and numeracy based, without bringing in a preschool program, but more in terms of individual student readiness, bringing in those more formal learning opportunities as the children express and develop and demonstrate their readiness, so that when they're coming to prep, those expectations and those ways of being within a school environment are already well merged into their way of being in the kindergarten. So the kindergarten, as well as that, the kindergarten teachers and our early years teachers work with the leaders of those areas to ensure that our ways of well-being, our language, etc., are really carefully aligned so that the children don't feel that there is a significant difference between those environments. And I can't tell you, if you've ever need to fill your bucket, come and see a kindergarten child donning their St Michael's uniform for the first time. That's a moment of joy and pride that has to be captured.
Thank you, Emma. And yes, I agree. Every time I need to fill my bucket, I head down to Margaret Thomas House. We've got a question around the number of students in year levels in the secondary school. And from year 7 through to year 12, we have a cap of 150. And that allows us to know the students very well, and for them to know each other. And we think that is the sweet spot. We did some really strong and analytical work some years ago on the right size of the school for our footprint, for our commitment to being a really cohesive community, and 150 feels about right for us. We've got another question around consent education and at what year level it is taught. And I'm going to ask Mr. Daniel Zito to respond to that from the perspective of the junior school, and then Mr. Houlihan will respond to that from the perspective of the secondary school. Daniel?
Thank you, Terrie, and good morning and welcome to everyone joining us this morning. Look forward to working through some of your questions with you. So in terms of consent education, just to contextualise that, at St Michael's, all students undertake a health class. This is from prep to year 10. So all year round, every week, a specialist health teacher works with each class. So part of that, we take a holistic approach to the health classes, and one guiding principle in that is the respectful relations curriculum. So St Michael's is actually a leading school in the respectful relationships curriculum. And this sets out a continuum of skills from prep right up to year 10. So at age appropriate levels along the way, students are growing in their skills and understanding in this area. And that defines concepts, many concepts, but one of them being consent. To give you an example, in a prep classroom, this is addressing ideas of friendship and what it means to be a good friend. And as you can imagine, as the students grow, they're applying this to broader and broader contexts at age appropriate levels. So by sort of year 6 and year 7, they're starting to define the word consent and what that might mean in different contexts. Then, and Jared might speak in a moment about personal wellbeing, which the health class morphs into personal wellbeing. We mentioned the holistic approach to wellbeing. So as they're entering years 7, 8, and 9, they're starting to apply consent to age-appropriate contexts. So I hope that starts to answer that question. Jared might speak more about personal wellbeing as a class and how that evolved. But I'll also say that for more specifics, please put questions into the question and answer function, because we can follow up for more in-depth conversations if we don't get to it today.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, happy to build on that. As Daniel said, we've been a lead school in the Respectful Relationships program. We were actually a founding lead school, led a number of independent Catholic and state schools in the Bayside area. Part of that is the implementation of consent curriculum, and also an audit across our school, which we established several years ago. The other aspect that's so important is student voice and agency, as I mentioned. And in fact, our Student Representative Council came back to Terrie and I and said we would like consent education in the senior years brought forward. And so we actually reviewed our consent education several years back. Daniel's talked about personal wellbeing. It's a wonderful subject. We used to have 3 subjects. One was health, the other was spirituality and Ankara, and the other was positive learning, linking, as Emma said, to Martin Seligman's work. But we combined that in, again, that was student feedback, into one holistic subject called personal wellbeing, and consent's taught there. It extends from year 7 to 9 through to consolidated subject of health in year 10. And on top of that, we actually have talks in year 7 to 12 that are age appropriate to the year levels on youth and the law. And we're presently, our wellbeing committee talked about when we're facilitating those this year. So we cover it on a range of levels. And for parent education, Terrie mentioned the Ask an Expert forums, and we've had experts present to parents on consent education and their role in sexuality education also. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. So there's 5 minutes only left for today. So we'll get through another question before wrapping up. A reminder that this is being recorded, and we'll send a follow-up email with a link to the recording if you missed some of the presentations earlier on, because some of the questions that are being posed, I think we've covered in some of the presentations today. There is a question around neurodiversity, and something we're really proud of as an inclusive community at St Michael's is catering to a diverse array of students, and we ensure that they are safe and that our strengths-based approach works with them and their parents in collaboration to find the pathways and the learning experiences that will both elicit and challenge their strengths and bring out the very best in them. Neurodiversity is as the name suggests, quite a continua. So if you have an interest, or if you have a neurodiverse child, please, as you're making your enrolment, make that clear to us so that we can enter into a conversation with you about how best to meet their needs. And I think that we have a really rich and proud tradition of doing that very well, and catering to students who learn faster and move further than their peers, students who need extra support in some areas, and children indeed who are twice exceptional, who might do both of those things with a jagged profile, know a lot about and be very competent in some areas, but who find other areas challenging. And we know from the research that those with the jagged profile do extremely well in settings where they're given opportunities to find their niche, follow their passions and interests, and are supported. So if you have a specific question around a particular type of neurodiversity, then please do let us know. So we're actually at time now, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today on this beautiful Melbourne day. And we'll get back to you if you haven't actually had your questions answered today and you've posed it with your name attached to it. We'll definitely get back to you via email. And we invite you, as I said, to view our presentations again and see if your question is answered in more depth than you might have heard on the first time, or reach out. We've got some very limited places available and remaining for 2023, and we're actively filling now positions for 2024. And indeed, just last week, I started the first set of Year 7 interviews for 2024 with Year 5 students. So it's very, very timely that we talk today about ensuring that you have made application, because we have wait lists that you can join, and because of the type of accepting, diverse and globally oriented school that we are, we sometimes do have a bit of movement towards the end of the year with people relocating overseas, particularly now that they can again, and people relocating interstate. So do make sure that you have your name and your applications in. If you're interested in a place for 2023 and haven't already made an application, you can still call enrolments on 0385303310 before applying to discuss availability. If you're interested in any other years of entry, I'd encourage you to make an application as soon as possible by clicking the apply button on our webpage. Thank you for attending our online open morning today. I really do hope it's been valuable for you. You've got to see a few faces and to hear from us. I really look forward to meeting some of you, I hope, in person, and in hearing from you via email if you've got any more questions. We'll now conclude the event. Thank you and have a lovely day. Have a very safe and wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you at St Michael's soon.